Hi, my name is William Martin, and welcome to another edition of Black on Black. On today's show, I'm going to be talking a little bit about history. I'm not a historian, but I'm always amazed about all the good things that have happened in the past. When I think of great people, two quickly come to my mind. And well, everybody knows the first person, and his name is Dr. Martin Luther King. It's quite easy for anybody today to tell you a little bit about this great man called King. We all know that he was born January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, to a loving and caring middle-class family headed by Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta Williams King. Now, young King was raised in a very good family that possessed strong moral and educational values. King's dad was a Baptist minister and his mom was a school teacher. So things like going to church and finishing one's homework was not a compromising issue in the King's family. At the young age of 19, he graduated from the Morehouse College, and in 1951, King earned his Bachelor of Divinity degree at Crozer Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania. Now, King's unrelentless drive to always strive for excellence, to always be the best at whatever he did, no matter how great the odds were stacked against him, helped to propel him to the head of his graduating class. He won the Pearl Plackner Award and the J. Lewis Crozer Fellowship that eventually financially assisted him in his endeavors in higher academic achievement. Now, during that same year, in 51, King finished his academic studies at the Graduate School of Theology at Boston University. He made acquaintance with some of the great people that we all know, Edgar Sheffield Brightman, and I believe there was L. Harold DeWolf. Now, but King's greatest accomplishment, in my opinion, was when he finished his education and received his PhD degree in systematic theology in 1955. Now, this is when King transformed into Dr. King. And we all know that when he was going to Boston University, it wasn't always study, and research. There was a little leisure time for the King. And during those early years at Boston University, he happened to meet a very fine young black lady by the name of Coretta Scott, who at the time was living in Marion, Alabama. Now, this fine black lady, just like many of the fine young black ladies living today had a very sharp head on her shoulders. She had already graduated from Antioch College, and she was studying fine arts at the New England Conservatory of Music. Well, as things go, love took its course, and these two fine young people came as one, and they were married in 1953. And out of this marriage came four beautiful children, and I believe their names were Yolanda Denise, and there was a Martin Luther the third, and then there was Dexter, and one other, Bernice Albertine. And much like his dad, Martin Sr., Martin Jr. Was also a pastor, I believe it. And his family, this is Martin Luther King Jr.'s family, perpetuated strong moral values of always being good to your fellow man. I believe the things that Martin Luther King Sr. and Martin Luther King Jr. had did in their families are some of the things that all of us need to keep in mind. We need to make sure that we keep goodness in our hearts and treat our fellow man just the way we would like to be treated. And we need to remember to perpetuate goodness down through the generations and not hate one another, and not have this discrimination and this poverty and this distrust and the things that I see about the fear of the black male. All these type of things aren't needed in our society. Well, back to King, I think from 1954 to 1960, Dr. King served as pastor at the Dexter Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. And everybody knew that blacks and other ethnic groups weren't getting their fair share in the American dream. So Dr. King was fully aware of that fact, and his theological teaching started to shift more into areas that affected social problems and social changes. He became president of the Montgomery Improvement Association that eventually negotiated a one-year boycott on the Montgomery public transportation system. Now you're saying, why would a man want to get people to boycott a public transportation system for a period of a year? And we all know what happened to Rosa Parks when she happened to ride on one of the buses in Montgomery. But that's another story. And we also know that Dr. King caught a lot of flack from this old world, and all he was trying to do was to promote peace and harmony amongst the people of this great country. Now, he tried to do this by using his famous philosophy of non-violence. It went something like this, you see. If a stranger came up to you, a complete stranger now, and he picked up a stick and he busted you right upside your head, and after you gotten off the ground, what you were supposed to have done was you were supposed to offer this person your other cheek, And if the person happened to bust you in the head again, and you managed to get yourself back up off the ground again, what you were supposed to do was offer this same person your coat. And this kind of ideal was how King and his followers fought their battles in the streets of the South, you see. And believe it or not, this strategy seemed to work. He proved that for a while, that no matter who you are or how you feel about things today, that there is always some measure of goodness in everybody. Now, sometimes it might depend on how much time it will take for that goodness to come out, or how long it might take for us to understand one another, but eventually goodness should prevail, no matter how great the odds are stacked against it. Well, King saw the use of passive resistance, or the use of non-violence, as a crucial tool in his quest for equality. And in 1957, Dr. King became a crucial part of the civil rights movement and developed an organization known today as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And this was initially based out of Atlanta, Georgia. In 1960, he joined his dad as co-pastor of the Ebony Baptist Church. And during the next few years, King fought against injustices that faced the black man in this country. In 1963, he helped to organize the historical march to Washington. We all remember all those people standing around the big reflection pool down there in Washington, and his famous speech, "I Have a Dream." Remember that? That all happened in 1963. Now, Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, but all his accomplishments came to him with a very heavy price. You see, America at large was not ready to accept his message of equality for all people. King was frequently harassed. He was arrested numerous times, spat on, and beaten. His house was bombed. He received numerous death threats, and the world kind of watched King and his followers march through the streets of Birmingham and Selma, Alabama. We all know about those instances with the dogs and the water hoses, you see. For a man who stood for non-violence, violence seemed to rear its ugly head at every turn of the draw. But this didn't keep Dr. Martin Luther King down. He continued to organize civil rights movements, and he even planned another march to Washington. This time it would be called the Poor People's March. Now, the march would probably have helped me during that time, because I certainly was one of those poor people. Well, while King was planning this Poor People's March. He was also involved in another civil rights action in Tennessee that involved the garbage collectors of Memphis. You see, they were fighting for better wages and better working conditions. And in order to find out how bad the working conditions were for the garbage collectors, you could find King early in the morning with his gloves on and all, going down and emptying trash with the garbage collectors, trying to organize them and trying to find out what the problems were right there on the street. That's the way King was. And this was kind of hard work for him, trying to organize in Memphis and doing this thing for the Poor People's March in Washington, D.C. But King had an unexhaustible drive when it came to helping out his fellow man. During his second trip back to Memphis, things for King came to a sudden end. And it was a terrible ending. You see, while King stood on a balcony at the Lorraine Hotel talking with a couple of his friends, a man named Lee Harvey Oswald set to course an assassin's bullet that ended King's life. Now, the man of nonviolence was murdered on April 4th, 1968. And many of us still can remember that awful day, but King's dream continues to live on, and slowly but surely we are seeing some changes in our society. And speaking of change, everything in our world is simply not black and white issues. There are a great many number of people of different races and cultures that have contributed immensely to this country. And the second person that comes to my mind that I'd like to talk to you about had a very colorful life. He was born in 1878, and his parents called him Doricho Arenga. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And as a boy, Arenga grew up into a man, and he was fascinated with the famous Mexican folklore tales of the man they called Villa. Now, Villa was a notorious Mexican bandit, and this young man, Arenga, sort of took his name and called himself Pancho Villa. Now, Pancho Villa became the living legend of the Mexican folklore. He quickly established himself as a bandit and an outlaw. And in his early conquests, he was mainly concerned about reaping personal wealth and power. So there was Pancho Villa out there, pillaging and plundering, trying to get rich quick, you see. He organized a band of men, and they combed the northern Mexican deserts or the territories, and what they did is they went out looting and they were robbing trains and banks and mines, and of course a few people got killed in the process. Pancho Villa's sympathized with the landless peasants and became a much admired revolutionary hero to the Mexican people. He was like kind of like a Robin Hood, you might say. He used a style of guerrilla warfare tactics that made him very effective against the country's standard methods of fighting. And over the years, Pancho Villa used this band of men to fight against tyranny that plagued the Mexican government from time to time. He became a hero when he joined forces with the Mexican people to overthrow a dictatorship that was being ran by a gentleman named Porfirio, Porfirio